Anyway, the mission was relatively simple, and the two completed it with ease. Though throughout the mission, Dazai appeared to be lost in his own thoughts, and only responded when Atsushi repeatedly called out his name. Atsushi expected Dazai to promptly return to the office, given and how much he had complained about the cold the whole time they've been outdoors. Much to his surprise, Dazai told him to head back to the office without him. I just remembered there's something I need to check up on, Atsushi-kun, Dazai explained. And when the younger man gave him a perplexed look. But Dazai-san, the older detective waved him away. Better hurry, Yurikuri is gonna get angry again. Atsushi stiffened at the mention of the blonde. Wait, is he blonde? Whatever. Anger, and hurried away to report back to him. Dazai chuckled as he watched his What? Give me a second. Anyway, from what I learned, it was protege, but anyway, and waited till the younger detective was completely out of sight before proceeding on his own. The sound of knocking against the door broke Chi's plans for a quiet afternoon. He groaned and pulled the blankets over his head, hoping the person trying to bother him would take a hint and leave him alone. It was wishful thinking, and yet he tried anyways. Chiya's heard the lock being picked open as the annoyed disturbance let himself into the apartment. Breaking into other people's homes is against the law, Dazai, he mumbled against the blanket, not bother covering his face. Get out. I'm sorry. Dazai's cheerful voice rang through the emptiness. That's no way to greet someone who came to visit you, Chuya. I never asked for you to come annoy me, Dazai. He could hear Dazai's footsteps drawing closer to him. Not having the energy to deal with the brunette antiques. Dazai continues to ignore the other present. Chuya! Dazai whined. Dazai whined in a childish voice over and over again till Chuya finally uncovered himself, unable to ignore the irritation any longer. What do you want, Dazai? He spat out as he glared at the other. Dazai smiled at him, still keeping a cheerful mask over his face. When was the last time you slept? Do you just... What? Anyway. Chuya's eyes widened at the sudden question before he turned his head away. It's none of your business, Dazai. Chuya. Dazai's hand grabbed onto the executive's littered waist and drew him closer. He slightly challenged the other to fight. He knew something was off, given the lack of temper in Chuya's voice, as well as the lack of physical abuse against him. And the minute he managed to break into the redhead's apartment through given and Chuya's tendency to shut Dazai out of his emotions, he wasn't sure Chuya would willingly open up to him. Somewhere deep inside him, Dazai somewhat regretted being the cold, emotionless partner he was during the Mafia days. His frosty attitude had resulted in Chuya clamming up his emotions to the best of his ability when it concerned Dazai. Sapphire went straight back at him in defiance, but Chuya didn't draw away. What? He questioned, his voice slacking its usual biting tone. Whoa, I'm not reading it. Why don't you tell me the truth? Okay. Chuya huffed during the tickling torture till he finally broke. Just one day, he muttered under his breath. Yeah. Liar. Dazai breathed out with his lips. Lifting ferociously, the excuse pushed Dazai away from him with both hands. It's fine. It's been several days. The dark tan Dazai's eyes faded at the honest answer, and he fully drew away. Chuya, you need to sleep more. The execute let out a deep sigh. You don't need to tell me that, Dazai. In fact, you're sleeping right now. Wait, what? Chiyu didn't get to finish his thought as Dazai threw the petite execute over his shoulder, ignoring Chiyu's protests and insults, and tossed him onto the bed not so gently. Chiyu, if you attempt to get up, I'll tie you to the bed and force you to get some sleep. Chiyu shot dagger. What? Where'd you get the daggers from at him? Always the kicky one, argue. Dazai, where'd you get the daggers from? The brunette slapped at him only. Yeah, smiled back, giving Chiyu a quick wink. Well, Chiyu should know, based off first-hand experience. The P execute flushed a shade of red brighter. Wait, then his hair pulled the blankets up around him, ultimately burying himself behind the cupboard. Shut up and get out so I can sleep in peace. The brunette hummed a happy good night and silently left the room. Oh, I'm reading so loud, my throat hurts. Anyway, Dazai's encounter with Chiyu was soon forgotten as the brunette found more and more work piling up on both himself and the rest of the agency members. Given Chiyu's loyalty and dedication to the mafia, the brunette brushed off the encounter aside as a case of over-exaggeration, something that occurred often. It often even before Chiyu was an execute. He wouldn't be surprised if the redhead's habits became worse after his increase of responsibilities that came with being a figure in the mafia. The intensity of Chiyu's work ethic reminded him of Kunikita. The smile stretched out of Dazai's hips. He leaned back on his chair. The two would most likely get at long given amounts of suffering Dazai put both of them through. Dazai hummed to himself as he continued to lean back, lost in his own thoughts till Atsushi entered the room. Dazai thought, it's time to leave. The brunette sighed and stood up. The mission today involving the corporation with the Port Mafia, and he was dreading to have a collaboration with both Okutagawa and Chiya. He made a sour face. It's going to be a terrible day. Indeed it is. Atsushi gave him a puzzled look. Dazai-san? Dazai, he cheerfully he smiled back at his
protege.
Give me a second.
Protege.
Oh, protege. Let's go, Atsushi-kun. The two men left at this point where the cloaked figure was already waiting for them. Always the early one, aren't you, Okutagawa? Dazai remarked. Okutagawa coughed twice before turning around, but made no attempt to speak to either of the two detectives. The strange behavior baffled Dazai. Normally, his former would demand Dazai face them in a battle to prove his strength and earn acknowledgement, or he would be hurling insults at Atsushi. The bandaged detective's eyes slightly widened. Speaking of insults, where's Chiya? Dazai questioned. He was supposed to meet us here. After all. Facing away, Okutagawa muttered in response in a voice so low Dazai strained to hear. Nakaharu sounds at the hospital. Excuse me? Chiya groggily blinked eyes and struggled to open them fully. The IV drip placed in his arm, as well as the beeping of a heart monitor, alerted him that he was currently in the hospital. But no matter how hard he tried to remember, he couldn't recall why he had been admitted. The only thing that came to mind was the overwhelming that seemed to seep into his bones and throbbing of his head. The execute slightly groaned as he attempted to sit up, but decided it wasn't worth the effort, laid back down. Koyo entered the room, concerned, burying her beautiful face. And she suddenly bolted right upright on his bed, ignoring the scream, protest, and his puzzles. Unsought, Koyo mentioned her in the relax. Chia, how are you feeling? And he sunk back into the bed, exhausted. She gave him an understanding smile. You haven't been sleeping much, have you? Pale blue eyes darted to Koyo's face. Ansan, how did you know? The pink hair execute approached the side of his bed and had several papers. This came today. She slept with the solemn face. Chiyu gave the papers a quick look go over before sighing and setting them aside. Give me a second. Koyu gently pulled pulled him into her arms, bringing the smell of spring and flowers to her. At first, she protested. He wasn't a child anymore, but seeing the pain in Koyo's pig eyes, he realized the embrace was not only to comfort him, but to comfort herself. Giving into her warmth, Chuya buried his face into her shoulder like he'd done so often as a child, and wished that the soothing hand running through his hair would lull him to sleep like it did so many years ago. This is so sad. The news of Chuya's hospitalization came as a sudden surprise to Dazai, since despite his extreme work ethic, the petite execute never had landed himself in the hospital before. Dazai found himself standing in front of Chuya's apartment as he debated turning around. He wasn't even sure if Chuya had been released yet, but his curiosity was underlying concern because his bandaged hand caused his bandaged hand to knock at the door. The brunette waited a couple moments in the silence. He concluded Chuya had not been released yet and turned to leave when the door opened, revealing a disorganized Chuya. Oh no. Sorry. The executive read his hair through his unkempt hair. Who is it? Chuya's face instantly turned hostile upon meeting Dazai's eyes. The door slammed shut in his face. Chuya, that's so mean, he whined from outside. He continued to pester the other while counting down the seconds it would take for Chuya to reopen the door. Dazai's countdown reached 0 when right on cue, Chuya reappeared. What do you want, shitty Dazai? He mumbled under his breath, the normal bite absent from his voice. The detective easily slipped past the short execute and entered the apartment. And much to Chuya's irritation, once inside, Dazai analyzed Chuya's physical state and discovered Chuya had gotten worse over the course of several days. The redhead ignored him and sat back down in front of the TV. The lack of response in his sudden intrusion was slightly concerned Dazai. Normally, the fiery execute would have thrown his knife at his face while attempting to kick him out of the door, but Chuya remained motionless on the couch, almost as if he couldn't be bothered to deal with the annoying intrusion invading his home. Dazai searched around the room, looking for anything out of the ordinary, when his eyes fell upon several papers lying on the dinner table. Chuya, what is that? Sorry. Why don't you read it for yourself? Chuya resorted. Or has your love for suicide destroyed so many brain cells you finally lost the ability to read? I'm sorry. A faint smile tugged at the corner of Dazai's lips as the familiarity of the routine returned for a brief moment, scanning the pieces of paper with his hand. Quickly, the smile fell from his face, and his hazelnut eyes grew larger and larger with every word he read. Chuya, this is This is exactly what you think it is, Dazai. The papers for the hospital wrinkled in his hands as Dazai reread the diagnosis. Chiya Nakahara, fatal. Sorry, I'll just say FF and I. Yes, this is where it starts. And we're not even done. This is so fun. FFI, extreme rare autosomal disease of the brain. Dazai's eyes trail down to the bright screen of his laptop. FFI has no known cure that involves progressively worsening insomnia, which leads to hallucinations. What? Confusional states like at the one of the dead. What? And eventually death. What the? Whoa! I've already read this, but I scanned it. But whoa! Average survival time for patients after one onset of symptoms is 18 months. Dazai read the sentence over and over again. FFI has no cure. Numbness crept into his system as he blankly stared at the sentence. No cure. Chiya's condition had no cure. Realization dawned upon him as he slid down his seat. Chiya was gonna die. Oh gosh, I can start crying. And he couldn't do anything about it. Dazai slammed his laptop shut. He refused to accept this, even if there was no cure now. Oh, he could hope that one would eventually be found. Clinging onto the small glimmer of hope, the brunette prepared to leave for work. There was no way he was gonna merely accept this. I'm sorry. Octagawa walked into Chiya's office, only to find the execute agitedly pacing around. Nakahara-san? Chiya whipped his head towards the intruding voice. What? The irritation in the redhead's voice caused the younger member to slightly step back. Sapphire eyes flickered towards his face. Chiya sighed. Oh, it's just you, Octagawa. He straightened out. What is it? The cloaked mafia coughed several times before responding. The boss wants to know where the reports were. Said it's unlike you to be late with them when you normally so punctually. Chiya's frustrated voice cut him off. Shit, that's what I forgot. The execute pinched the bridge of his nose, shutting his eyes tightly. I'll get it right now. Proceeding to the door, Octagawa nodded in acknowledgement, but turning back around, turning back around. Nakahara-san, is there something wrong? You've been forgetting many things recently. Black eyes stared at his head, including your hat. Chiya cursed under his breath. He couldn't believe he forgot his beloved hat, or even that Octagawa, someone who was only interested in Dazai's attention, had noticed his forgetfulness. It's nothing, he responded. Octagawa stared at him a second longer than he normally would before exiting the room. Chiya sighed once he was alone. The heaviness of his bones felt as if the weight of the world was upon his shoulder, and he swayed slightly as he fumbled around his desk looking for the unfinished reports. The redhead brought a hand to his eye and wondered if Mori would give him the rest of the day off. Chiya grunted, but it was worth a shot. Sorry. His day was relatively quiet, and Chiya found the silence welcoming in his exhausted state, but also somewhat lonely. His insomnia had progressively gotten worse. He found himself restlessly turning in bed, only to blink stare at the ceiling till the sun rose. Not even drinking helped ease some of his fatigue. In fact, being drunk only reminded him of his physical worn-out state, as he wasn't able to sleep off the alcohol. Chiya sat down on the couch and stared at the quiet city out his window. The city slept as it should, leaving Chiya alone in the darkness. He debated moving to do something semi-productive when a sudden knock at the door drew his attention. He looked at the clock, barely able to make out the time, only the moon as his source of light, but nonetheless somehow managed. 3:24 a.m. The execute wrote on the only person would be insane enough to bother him at such an ungodly hour. The knocking persistently grew louder as Chuyi reluctantly brought himself in front of the door. "Who is it?" he asked in a flat voice, beside knowing who was on the other side of the door. "Chuya, glad you're still up." Dalzai's muffled voice came from outside. "What do you want so early in the morning, shitty Dalzai?" "I want Chuya to let me in," the brunette responded in a cheerful voice. The redhead turned away from the door. "Go back to your own apartment." "But Chuya, this used to be my apartment too." "Then you should be able to let yourself in, Dalzai," he resorted as he walked away from the door. Dalzai sighed as he pulled out a lockpick from inside his coat. He wished Chuya wouldn't make him go through such unnecessary work when he could avoid it. With several seconds, Dalzai entered the apartment, bringing several suitcases with him. Chuya glared at him. "You've always been so good with your fingers." "Oh, that sounds weird. Smiling brightly, Dalzai responded, "Oh, Chuya, I didn't know you felt that highly of me. I'm touched." "It wasn't a compliment, shitty Dalzai." Sapphire eyes fell upon the luggage around Dalzai's feet. "What is it?" A smile on the brunette's face grew even brighter. "Listen, Chuya, my apartment needs to be renovated. Be right back." Anyway, the glass of water between Chuya's fingers almost slipped through his head. "Oh, you're what?" Dalzai tilted his head. Did you not hear me the first time? Honestly, you ought to pay attention when people are speaking to you. It's no wonder you became such an execute like this." Dalzai shook his head. "I said I'm moving in with you." "What? It's 3 a.m. Why do you have a knife?" The blade of a knife pressed against Dalzai's throat. Seconds after the sentence fell from his lips. "Who said you could come back here?" Chuya growled in a low voice. Toffee eyes flickered with amusement. Dalzai leaned into the gleaming blade, drawing a thin red line of blood from his skin, and changed his former partner to draw the metal across his skin in one swift motion, ultimately ending his life, forcing Chuya to make an impossible decision. He spoke in a voice dripping with venom. If you really don't want me here, kill me right now." Chuya. Darkness crept in his voice. "I'm waiting." The blades proceeded slightly deeper into his pale throat, causing blood to trickle down into the collar of Dalzai's shirt. Chuya struggled with being the one to end the traitor of Port Mafia with his own hands, like he always started. He stated he would, and dealing with the aftermath of Dalzai's future absence from his life, or letting the irritating brunette and during the torment. Dalzai seemed to have created just to make Chuya's life living hell. A mixture of resentment and conflict burned deep within his the blade cut deeper into each layer of flesh with the passing second. Dalzai was starting to believe he had miscalculated when Chuya reluctantly pulled away. "Whatever you want, Dalzai." "With pleasure, Chuya." I need to switch my positions. The detective brought his suitcase into the living room where the roll of bandages were thrown at his face. Surprised, he caught all the rolls and smiled in Chuya's direction. Sitting down on the couch, Dalzai unraveled the roll of fabric to bandage the injury on his neck. Chuya continued to ignore him and shuffle into the bedroom, feeling a lack of sleep himself. Dalzai followed him to only have a pillow thrown against his face with the more force than a normal human should be able to muster, especially when sleep deprived. "Get out, shitty Dalzai. Go sleep on the couch or something." The brunette peeled the pillow from his face and the ginger touched his nose. I see your brute strength hasn't been affected in any way. You could have broke my nose. Chewie scoffed. It's a pity I did it. The execute wrapped himself in his blankets when he felt the mattress shift beside him, and Dawson crawled under the covers next to him. His multitudes of insults pretended to be in vain as they fell upon deaf ears. Chewie! Dawson whined his bandages. His arms stayed around Chewie's petite waist. The couch is so uncomfortable and you're so warm. Dawson nuzzled his hair. Chewie's hair with his nose and felt the red had given. Chewie was too tired to argue with his former partner anymore and sank into Dawson's arms. Fine, he grumbled, but you better not try anything funny. I'm kicking you out instantly. Dawson hummed in agreement and quickly fell asleep, leaving Chewie with only his thoughts for company. The two fell back into the familiar routine they had established many years ago. The only difference being they no longer headed in the same direction after exiting the building. Try not to get caught by the police, Chewie, is the farewell that met Chewie's ears every morning as they parted ways. You wish, shitty bastard. Familiarity of the routine both relaxed the terrified Chewie. He wondered how long Dawson would stay this time before suddenly vanishing again without a word. He pushed the thought from his mind and decided to focus on the time he had with the brunette right now, regardless of how short or to may end up being. Despite his attempts continued to linger at the back of his mind. Chewie exhaled and stepped into Maury's office, ready to face another day. Boss, you summoned me? Oh my gosh, my eyes hurt so much. They're so dry. I gotta go get some eye drops really quick. Anyway, we're back. I had to get some eye drops because my eyes were really dry. Anyway, Chewie entered the apartment after a long day. He rolled back his shoulders in an attempt to relieve himself of exhaustion, as well as the tolls of the day. As Dawson had already given. Oh my gosh, as Dawson had already arrived before him and was seated on the couch. The brunette motioned for Chewie to come over with his hand. Chewie approached the other, perplexed by the sudden request. What do you need, Dawson? Dawson patted his arm. Sit down, Chewie. Why would I do such a thing? The hand continued to motion closer. Just do it, Chewie. Chewie sat down with his back towards the detective. Now what? His thoughts were shortly cut. Oh my gosh. His thoughts were cut short as he felt a brush gently combing through his hair. Dawson softly hummed. This will help you. This always helps you relax, doesn't it, Chewie? The brunette pulled Chewie on his lap and began to undo the tangles from his silky auburn hair. Just relax and close your eyes. You look terrible nowadays. What would Aunt Son say if she saw you in such a state? Mind your own business, Dawson. Chewie resorted, but nonetheless he leaned into the soothing and comfortable sensation. Dawson often brushed his hair back when they were still known as Sakoku. Nostalgia filled Chewie as he remembered the early mafia days. Oh my gosh. Oh, he does. What is it, Chewie? Yeah, he slightly paused. Another pause broke Chewie's sentence as he debated asking Dawson about how he was doing now that he was free from the Port Mafia. Silence filled the room as Chewie struggled with needing to know Dawson was doing well and not wishing to confirm his absence in the brunette's life. It meant little to him. Chewie, the redhead side gave him gave it to his concerned. Oh my gosh. And needed to confirm Dazai's well-being, even if the knowledge would cut him to the core. Do you enjoy life at the agency? I'll have to say it's much livelier place than the Port Mafia, at least. Are you happy there? The soft brush hustled as Dazai took a while to respond. I am. Ignoring the faint ache within him, Chia huffed. Then why are you wasting your time here? You won't regret spending you with a dying person. The presence of Dazai's head and his hair left him as the bandages arms wrapped themselves around his waist. Chia does on the top of Chia's head gently, and a quiet response was a whisper in his head. I'll never regret spending my days with you, Chia. Oh gosh. This is where stuff goes. Spring's warm days gave into the coming summers. He as it brought the rainy season with it. Chia watched as the rain splattered on the windows as a droplet drenched the city beneath them. His increased forgetfulness and exhaustion prevented him from attending work. And even if he wanted to, Amori had given him the extended leave until he was physically capable of performing the responsibilities he held as an execute. He had been reluctant to leave, but how busy were things with its urging, and Chia had eventually given in. Now he spent most of the days watching the rain fall while listening to its pattering against the windows. He wished the rain would wash away his fatigue and lull him to sleep. The gloomy overcast prevented most of the sunlight from breaking into the living room, but there were a few rays that managed to hit Chia's sky blue eyes. Shifting around, Chia closed his eyes and attempted to block the intrusion from his face. It was one of those rare days where Dazai didn't have any task at work. Not that the brunette would have gone even if he had to. Dazai hated the rain, claiming that the humidity made his hair frizzy and clung to him, which ruined his good looks as well as his chances of obtaining a double suicide with a beautiful maiden. Chia knew better. Dazai's excuse may fool others, but Chia knew the real reason why the bandaged detective despised the rain. And before the day Oda died, why are we bringing Odasaku into this? The heavy droplets reminded the brunette of his failure, causing him to curl up in bed and avoid in his memories. Chia knew this better than anyone. The redhead dragged his fatigued body to the bedroom where Dazai slept. Seeing his peaceful face, he struck a chord of envy in Chia as he wasn't able to sleep. Oh my gosh. He was asleep himself. To escape reality any longer, he sighed and carefully slipped under the covers beside Dazai. Avoid waking him up by brushing away the bangs covering his face. There was no more questions that Dazai had was indeed. Oh my gosh! There was no question that Dazai was indeed attractive. I can't talk. His fluffy brown hair that looked soft to the touch, along with his twinkling eyes that catching smile, made him physically despicable. Despite their many years together, Chia had never really gotten a good look at Dazai's face when he was sleeping. Curiosity compelled him to draw a little closer. The brunette's long lashes nearly touched his cheek, while his chest fell rhythmically with his breathing. His bandages were slightly loosened and were beginning to unravel from his neck and arms, revealing the pale skin behind it. Chia never understood the purpose behind Dazai wrapping himself up like a mummy. It would probably be one of those things he would never understand, given Dazai's secretive nature when it came to himself. Chia wondered how they even made it this far together. Dazai stirred in his sleep, rolling over his back, pushing the its waist bangs out of his face once more. Chuya softly laughed at Dal's childlike face when his eyes drifted towards the window. Pale blue eyes slowly widened. Daze, Chuya shook the sleeping figure. Wake up! Daze grumpily rubbed his eyes as he sat up yawning, and he turned towards the other. What's wrong, Chuya? Chuya pointed towards the window. Daze, look, it's snowing. No! The bird blinked in confusion. Chuya, what? It's the middle of the summer. Given Chuya's persistent claims of snow, Dazai looked in the direction Chuya was pointing. Gray skies with cloudy overcast greeting him as rain fell from the heavens as he was expecting. Not a single flake of snow in sight. He ran his hand through his hair, still confused as to why Chuya would wake up him when snow during the summer was unheard of. The execute should know it was impossible for the frozen water to fall given summer's heats. He looked outside the window and then back at Chuya. A mix of confusion and wonder lit up his sapphire eyes, and Dazai's heart slightly sank. In his sleep-deprived state, the pouring rain mixed with the cloudy sky gave off the illusion of white snow scattering from the heavens to coat the awaiting city in a white blanket. The pounding of the droplets against the window should have alerted Chuya that it was indeed rain, not snow, but after seeing the execute's face, Daze couldn't help to bring himself to tell Chuya the truth. A list of the symptoms Chuya would experience, giving his growing amnesia. Oh my gosh, echoed in the back of his head and a voice pulled him out of his thoughts. Daze, let's go outside. We haven't been out in the snow since we were kids. The request brought panic to Daze's mind. Chuya, if we go out right now, you'll end up with a fever. Given that terrible immune system of yours. A pillow was chucked at his face. He's taking his breath away. Shut your mouth. That was one time when we were like 9. But Chuya still looks the same when he was 9. Shut it. Sorry, shut. The laughter filled the room as Chuya slowly forgot about wishing to see the snow as Daze continued to tease him. Relief flooded into him. He didn't want to see pain flickering at Chuya's eyes. Chuya, oh my gosh, flickering in Chuya's already worn out eyes. Sorry. Ever since that one gloomy summer day, Chuya mentioned seeing snow almost every evening. Oh my gosh, Stevie was the oddest thing he'd ever experienced during the summer. Daze could only nod in agreement, unable to bring himself to tell Chuya the truth. As long as it's not hurting him, I don't see why not, Daze thought as he watched Chuya sit in front of the window, glass of wine in his hand. Chuya spent most of his day sitting on the couch, clearly exhausted but unable to give in to his body's desire to sleep. The redhead always greeted him from the living room when Daze returned, even during an ungodly hours of the morning. Daze walked into the apartment expecting to find Chuya sitting on the couch like always. Chuya back. A sudden burst of movement caught his eye as Chuya threw himself at Daze. Oh, Chuya, did you miss me that much? He jokingly eased bracing himself for the insults that were sure to follow. Chuya instead clung onto him like a trembling leaf. Oh my gosh. Chuya, the execute's odd behavior perplexed Daze as he lifted Chuya's face towards him. Soft eyes questioned him. What happened? Chuya let out a shaky breath. Corruption, Daze, corruption. His voice fell into a whisper. Corruption standing right there. It's just standing there without a word, smiling. Dazai, wait, Dazai, there's so much blood. It drinking down from the empty hollow eye sockets. Its nose is peeling, skin revealing rotting vessels behind. Dazai, Chuya, calm down. Chuya shook his head. Dazai, it looks terrifying. His voice even lower. Do I really look like that when I use it? Blood dripping down my eyes? My hands, my eyes, my mouth, with just the whites of my teeth showing as my lips pulled up into an insane smile. The grip on Dazai's close tightened. Dazai, corruption. The bandaged hand grabbed Chuya's cheek, forcing his pale blue eyes to meet Dazai's. Chuya, corruption isn't here. But Dazai! Chuya. The firm tone of the brunette's voice caught Chuya's attention. Corruption isn't here. My nullification ability leaves no room for error. You already know. You know that already. Chuya let out another shaky breath and a nod. I know. Dazai pulled Chuya closer to him, waiting for the execute to finally calm down. They separated after several minutes. Chuya stared off into the direction where corruption had been standing. A finger wrapped around itself around Dazai's own. Without a word, a smile tugged at the brunette's lips. Dazai fully held Chuya's hand. Let's go to bed. It's late. Chuya laid in the bed beside the soft-breathing brunette. Dazai had fallen asleep rather quickly instead of reading his suicide manual for hours before he would eventually fall asleep. He glances at his phone, squinting at the brightness that hit his face. 4:36 a.m. Chuya returned his phone to the bedside table and shuffled closer towards the sleeping figure. A fluttering kiss landed on Dazai's forehead, and Chuya whispered, "Happy birthday!" Chuya whispered in a low voice, "Happy birthday, Dazai." A wispy smoke trailed after him, even as Chuya backed away. Wait, why won't you leave me alone? Black dust swirled around until the shape of a person stood in front of him. A curl of laughter filled the air. Smoke melted off the figure and pulled at its feet puddles of molten darkness. Chuya's breath caught in his throat as he staring, disbelief filling his sky blue eyes. His corruption self taunted him. How could I leave you alone when we're the same person, Chuya? Corruption approached him as Chuya slowly continued to back away till he felt his back hit the wall. Ice cold hands took his own and peeled off his black gloves. Look how much blood is on your hands, Chuya. Look at how many people you've killed. How could anyone stand to be by your side when you've become so... Corruption leaned into his ear. Tainted. His hands clutched into fist as he fell by his eye, drawing a deep breath. Chuya bet his ability head on. Dazai is still here. The dark shadow let out a static sound that sent shivers down on Chuya's spine. Dazai is no longer here. It whispered, a cold, hearty ache. Oh my gosh. A cold hand yanked him forward and turned him around. Don't you remember? You killed him. No! Chuya stared in horror as Dazai's spangled body, deep red blood leached out of deep gashes of light. His eyes started off into nothing. No, stop. I couldn't have. Corruption wrapped an arm around the shaking figure. Don't you see, Chuya? You're nothing but a monster. No! Chuya slashed at the smoke surrounding him with his knife. Why do you always have your knife, bro? Shut up! A sudden jerk on his arm yanked Chuya back into reality. Chuya! Dazai's concerned voice brought the execute back to his sense. Mentally exhausted, Chuya gave Dazai a quick glance before crumbling onto the floor. Chuya! The brunette fell to his knees as well and knelt beside the trembling figure. Worry filled his hazel eyes. Did you have another hallucination? Chuya nodded. Also, you died. You died. I killed you. His sentence continued to come out shaky breath. Corruption. Tender head ran through his hair, causing him to slightly relax. I'm still here, Chuya. You didn't kill me, Dazai reassured. And a bandage had made his way in his own. Corruption isn't here. Alberta put on a cheerful smile besides, as long as I touch you like this, you can't use your ability, which includes corruption. Closing his eyes, Chuya sank into Dazai's chest, trying to shake the horrible image of blood and lifelessness from his mind. Dazai glanced at the shaking form as he looked around the room. Chairs had been turned over with books scattered over the floor and shards of glass glittered in the light. He held Chuya closer to him, thankful he had made it before the redhead physically hurt himself. The execute often hallucinated about seeing corruption standing before him, taunting him of his sins and wait. I'm sorry, I can't read. Despite all that, it never had Chuya torn through the room in attempts to fight against the looming ability. His grip on Chuya's slightly shaken figure tightened as he pulled Chuya even closer. This had been Chuya's worst reaction to a hallucination. Hallucination yet, sorry. I don't know why I'm laughing. Please don't take a million years to load. Oh, it's this one. Summer's golden hue only crept into the leaves as autumn made its presence known. As the months progressed, Chuya deteriorated faster and faster as he rapidly lost weight, rendering always fatigue, barely able to speak. Dazai wrapped his scarf around his neck a bit tighter, protecting it from the wind's bite. He couldn't afford to get sick, not when Chuya was already so physically weak. The execute's insomnia had progressively gotten worse, to the point where Chuya was unable to sleep at all. Dazai bit down on his lip in frustration. He had gone to Yasano for information, but Chuya's condition was only returned with what he already knew. He told him that the only thing he was able to do for Chuya is to keep him as comfortable as possible. The brunette felt frustration rise up as he reflected his own helplessness. Regardless of what life had thrown at him, he'd always managed to find a solution with ease. However, Dazai found his hands tied behind his back, unable to do anything but watch as sleep depression slowly consumed Chuya, both physically and mentally. Dazai opened up the door to the apartment. Chuya, I'm home. False cheers echoed through the room, and Dazai cringed at the sound of his own voice. So do I. Slowly blinking open his eyes, Chuya greeted him from the living room. We'll come back, Dazai. I'm sorry, I can't stutter well. Well, I can, but the brunette walked over to Chuya's side and sat down, taking Chuya's cold hands into his own. Dazai rested his head against Chuya's, asking the same question he asked every day. How are you feeling? Chuya shifted his head to meet Dazai's eyes. Exhaustion laced his normally sparkly sapphire eyes. The execute rested back against Dazai's shoulder before whispering his response. Tired. The detective could only bring an arm around the other's head, drawing him closer and silently comforting him the best that he could. The two sat in silence, and Dazai was preoccupied with the thought his thoughts, and Chuya his own. The first to break the quiet atmosphere surrounded them was Chuya. Dazai, he hummed in response, soft hair tickled Dozley's cheek as Chia turned to face him. I want to see the sunset. Sophie's eyes widened at the request. Chia, do you think you're up for it? Dozley couldn't help the concerned lace in his voice, even though he knew the other would notice Chia's rapid weight loss, accompanied by his instability to walk. Instability to sleep had weakened him to such a degree. Dozley worried a strong gust of wind might knock the petite executive over like a delicate paper doll. Chia merely scoffed at Dozley's doubts. Of course, I wouldn't suggest if I wasn't. Besides, Chia gave Dozley a tired smile. If it gets to be too much, you'll carry me, won't you, Dozley? The brunette chuckled. Of course, Chia. Dozley unwrapped himself from Chia's side and proceeded to grab their coats. He had originally reached for Chia's signature black coat, but remembered the biting wind with and grabbed a thicker coat of his own. He threw the closet Chia's direction, ignoring the complaints about horrible fashion sense. My fashion sense is much better than yours, Chia, Dozley asserted as he approached to execute with a scarf in his hand. The brunette wrapped the soft gray fabric around Chia's neck. Twice the sapphire eyes watched him without a protest. Confusion flickered across the redhead's face as he brought the scarf up to his nose. Dozley, this smells like you. It's because it's mine, Chia. The execute glared at him. Why do you wrap me up with yours when I have my own? Your scarf wouldn't go well with the coat you're wearing, he responded without turning around. Besides, mine is warmer anyway. Dozley proceeds to wrap up Chia's scarf around his own neck before opening the door to the apartment. Better hurry, Chia, or we'll miss it. The physical burden of walking in his weakened condition soon proved to be too much for Chia. Unable to ignore his strained breathing any longer, Dozley bent down and motioned for Chia to climb on his back. Blushing slightly, Chia obliged, too exhausted to protest. You know, I was joking, right? I was only joking, right? Sorry. Dozley laughed at the statement. Well, Chia, you may have been, but I wasn't. The brunette continued down the path leading to the beach as Chia buried his face into Dozley's back, resting his face comfortably between his shoulder blades. The slowly changing colors of the sky from blue to a light pink altered Dozley of rapidly passing time. With each step he took, the burden in his heart only grew heavier and heavier. In contrast to the weight on his back, Dozley had only complained about how heavy the petite execute was despite his short stature, but now he could hardly tell he was carrying someone at all. The salty smell of the ocean greeted them as they drew closer to the beach. Seagulls cried as they flew off into the horizon with the sound of the busy city rang behind them. Dozley nudged Chia gently. We're here. Two went out to respond verbally. The execute only nodded in acknowledgement. I'm sorry. Dozley didn't need to hear what Chia wanted to say to understand what he meant. The clouds glowed orange under the setting sun's rays. As the sky shifted from a soft pink to a golden red, the scene took Dozley's breath away. He came to understand why Chia was so fond of watching the sun slip behind the horizon. He nudged the execute once more as the golden orb slowly began to descend. Chia meekly lifted his head from Dozley's shoulder and watched the sun bid farewell to the city, its dye rays catching the anyway, the two watched the final glow slip behind the horizon with only the sounds of seagulls, the steady and crashing of the waves that kept them company. Dowsley broke the silence as night fell upon them. Chia? If you could wish for one thing, what would it be? Upon the question, Dowsley had been expecting Chia to think for a moment or two before answering, but instead Chia responded almost immediately. Do you remember the cherry blossoms we saw together as children? I do. The place where Morrison and Anson took us, right? I want to visit there again. Thus I let out a breathy laugh. To think one of the Port Mafia's most fearsome execute wants to go flower watching. Chia gently read his chin into the taller one's shoulder. Shut up, Dawsley. What do you wish for? A silent tear trickled down Dawsley's cheek as he turned his face out of Chia's. Oh my gosh! Sight preventing the other from catching it. Contemplating his answer a few moments longer, Dawsley I wish for the stars inked in the night sky as I carried Chia back to the apartment without sun's warmth. The wind felt even colder than it had during the day. After hearing Chia sneeze, Dawsley stopped on the edge of the sidewalk. Slowly, he let Chia down and threw his coat over the redhead's shoulder before picking him back up. Anson would skewer me with her katana if you get sick from all this, he explained. They continued during the apartment. Finding in comfort in the brunette's warmth, Chia kept his forehead against Dawsley's back without stirring. It wasn't until Dawsley abruptly stopped. Chia looked up. Look, Chia. Dawsley shifted the weight on his back and stretched out one of his hands. It's snowing in November. How odd is that? The execute simply lowered his head back onto Dawsley's shoulder blade, seemingly unimpressed by the unnaturally timed phenomenon. What are you talking about, Dawsley? It's always snowing. Dawsley felt his breath catch in his throat as the statement caught him off guard. Oh my gosh, I can't read. You're right, Chia. It always is snowing. The two had almost reached the apartment when the stillness of the night broke once more as a soft voice whispered into Dawsley's ears. Thank you. Dawsley clenched his jaw ever so slightly and didn't respond. It felt too much like a goodbye. Oh no, I'm gonna start crying. Don't make me cry. The soft thank you spoken at the midst of the quiet autumn night, as the last time Dawsley heard Chia's voice, the days grew shorter and cooler. Chia's voice became weaker and weaker till it finally disappeared altogether. Dawsley spent most of his days in silence, performing his daily task without the other's company. Chia's body eventually grew to reject food altogether, which only added to his rapid weight loss. The detective often ate alone in the living room while searching for news about Chia's illness, in hopes that a cure had been discovered. Nothing new ever appeared. He knew it was to keep hoping, but to keep longing for a miracle, and yet Dawsley couldn't bring himself to give up completely, not when it came to Chia. Dawsley made his way toward the curled up figure on the couch, having lost his ability to walk, and in addition to his speech, Chia's sole method of communication was laid within gentle touches and soft gazes, leaving it up to Dawsley to interpret his thoughts. Luckily, after all those years they spent together proved not to be in vain, as Dazai managed to understand Chiyo's thoughts as clear as if they were his own. He picked up the beautifully embroidered quilt that had been tossed over the side and wrapped the soft fabric around Chiyo's body. "You know better than not to use the quilt Ansan made for you," Dazai gently teased as Chiyo's tired eyes glared at him with as much bite as he could put into them. Despite the two birds with the same shade as Chiyo's eyes perched upon the branch while snow gently fell around them. The scene was a simple one, but Kyo's elegant techniques. The longer Dazai stared, the more it seemed as if the birds were about to take flight at any moment. Chiyo kept his eyes closed, ignoring Dazai as the brunette drew the quilt higher onto Chiyo's form, covering his mouth in the process. "Weren't you cold anyway, Chiyo?" Dazai was no stranger to the silence that greeted his question, and yet he couldn't help but feel a slight tug at the bottom of his heart. As much as he'd never admit it, he missed the sound of Chiyo's voice, whether it was spouting insults nonstop or just simply calling his name. The execute really opened his eyes and blinked at his thanks before burying his head back into the soft covers and the dark bags under Chiyo's eyes sunk and cheekbones and pale face slowly served as painful reminders of the redhead's exhaustion. Dazai gently pulled the quilt over him as he settled beside Chiyo and received another look, but the softest and Chiyo's normally piercing eyes betrayed his inner thoughts. The brunette smiled as he drew closer to the other, feeling the weight of the quilt covering them both. I'm sorry. The two sat in silence, with only the snow gently falling outside as company. Ever slowly, Chiyo leaned his body against Dazai's shoulder, a gesture he did often during his sleepless nights when Dazai was still part of the Port Mafia. In response, the brunette reached over and gently held Chiyo's hand, feeling the redhead finger twitch at the unexpected contact, and couldn't help but sadly smile at each action. If Chiyo wasn't able to walk, he still reached out. Even if Chiyo was unable to walk, he still reached Dazai's touch. At this point, it was the little things that mattered most. Being in such proximity to the exhausted Dazai, it could make the gentle rise and fall of Chiyo's chest moving in time with each breath. He squeezed Chiyo's hand ever so slightly. Chiyo is always the warmer of the two, and the brunette often used Chiyo as his personal heater. Given the other short stitch made it perfect to cuddle him under his chin when and sleeping, but now Chiyo felt too cool to the touch, and Dazai found himself pulling the execute even closer in attempts to share his body heat. Give me a second. I'm not crying, I swear. I'm not crying. When he met with a questioning gaze, the detective took the opportunity to speak instead of explaining himself. "Hey Chiyo, did you know that if you hold hands while you're sleeping, you'll have the same dream?" Amber eyes stared off at the falling snow before them, almost as if the statement it was for Dazai to hear alone. The barely noticeable squeeze against his palm was the only response he needed to know that. Give me a second. Was the only response he needed to know Oh, Chuya had heard him as well. Alas, the thoughts he couldn't bring himself to say. As comfortable as he was, Dazai knew Chuya Chuya preferred not to remain seated on the couch for extended periods of time. The trickling of time alerted him just how late in the night it was. The brunette untangled his hand from the other and slipped out from beneath the quilt. Without a word, Dazai gently picked up Chuya's fragile form along with the quilt and brought them into the bedroom. Normally, Chuya would put up a fight, claiming he could move around just fine without help. But he didn't protest and simply closed his eyes and sank into Dazai's arms. After setting Chuya down, when he wrapping him up, Dazai responded in the same manner. They were both relocating and slipped his hands into Chuya's. Minutes passed as Dazai he slowly felt his own eyes grow heavy with sleep and struggled against the urge to give in, despite to keep Chuya's company, even if only for a minute longer. But as the minutes grew into hours, sleep claimed him as darkness fell into his eyes. Give me a second. Morning light hit Dazai's face, bringing him out of his sleep. Still not completely awake, Dazai rubbed his eyes with his free hand when the weight in the other's caught his attention. Dread filled him to the brim. Something felt unexpectedly wrong. Chuya's hand rested limply against his own. Dazai felt his heart drop to his stomach. Unable to return towards the redhead's face, Dazai spoke in a shaky manner. Chuya, I just had the most terrible dream. You slipped away while I was asleep, so I didn't even get to say goodbye. His little eyes quivered as Dazai stared at the still form next to him. Chuya, this is just a bad dream, right? Oh my gosh, I can't handle this. Dazai pulled himself closer and pressed his lips. I can't do this. I have to stop. I'll make a part 2 when I get better.